Hi, everyone, and happy Monday. My name is Olivia Dravsik. I am City Council candidate in District 51, Staten Island South Shore, and this is City Council 101. City Council 101 has been all about what the City Council does, and as we've insinuated, and as many already know, City Council doesn't do everything. We do a lot, but not everything. So the state and the federal government have a role here. What we want to talk about today are the role of the City Council in still impacting what happens at the state and federal level. And a big part of that is going to be resolutions. So last week I reminded you of the very first City Council video, and we brought up resolutions. City Council can pass resolutions. Resolutions are going to go through the same process as other legislation. It'll be proposed at a stated meeting, and then it'll be referred to a committee that it pertains to. And then in that committee, they will hold public hearings, and this is the important part. Individuals, community groups, different coalitions, different agencies will testify at these public hearings and hopefully encourage their council member to sponsor that resolution if they think it's going to positively impact their community, themselves, their neighborhoods. Once it comes out of that committee, it then gets voted on again by the whole council in another stated meeting somewhere down in the future. Sometimes resolutions can go through this process more quickly because a resolution is not necessarily changing any laws in the city. What a resolution is saying is that it is kind of making a statement on state and federal legislation. So if legislation is being proposed at the state level or at the federal level, what a resolution will say is New York City wants this. It'll be a stand. It's going to be some sort of political influence. It's making a comment on public policy in the state and in the country and really taking a stand on what New York City's point of view is on that legislation. And this can make a big impact because if state legislators and federal legislators have this resolution, there's more pressure put on them to either pass something or not to. And so there's a state legislation resolution that's specifically called a home rules request that specifically speaks to resolutions that address state legislation that's being proposed that's going to impact New York City residents and New York City life. And so if you take a look at these home rules requests, these are some from 2019, right? So these were state laws, and you see them on the left, right? So state legislation that was being proposed, and that the New York City Council put out a home rules request or a state legislation resolution to say, New York City wants you to pass this, right? We want you to require the Department of Buildings to maintain a registry. We want you to deal with school zone speed limits. There's actually one in here that officially made Staten Island the borough of parks, right? Which was Senator Lanzer's bill. And so it provides the borough of Staten Island designated as the borough of parks. So that happened in 2019, which is pretty recently. And so if you go onto the New York City Council website that we've been in many times, you go under legislation because it's going through the same process. You can click search legislation. And you can specifically in this drop-down menu search by resolution, okay? And as with anything else, a whole bunch is going to pop up in theory, right? And so you have these here, and you can take a look. So it's an authorization, so you'll see resolution calling upon the United States Council to pass and the President to sign the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act, which would facilitate the expedited review of COVID-19 hate crimes. So obviously, if this passes, President Biden doesn't automatically go to his desk and sign this. But what it is saying is that one of the largest cities in your country is taking a stand on this legislation. We want this to happen. We want this to be implemented. And here is a very specific piece of legislation that the City Council has formally passed to encourage that. Right? And to recommend that and to push that. And so resolutions can have a big impact, right? And so you'll notice it's currently in committee. But this one was adopted, right? So resolution concerning the amendment to the district plans. And so there'll also be resolutions that have to do a lot with land use, and those go through somewhat different process. Right now we're talking about state and federal legislation calling on New York legislator to pass the New York Works Progress Program. So this is really getting out of work artists jobs. This is getting those who are in hard industries jobs. And so New York City clearly has a stake in the New York Works Progress Program. And so these council members are calling upon the New York State legislator to pass that bill and pass that legislation and make sure that the governor also knows New York City wants you to sign this. So that's really resolutions. Resolutions are a way for us to influence policy around the country, a way for us to influence policy that's happening at the state level, and to really make sure that New York City has a voice, which you know is one of my key priorities. New York City has a voice in the New York City Council. And the more that we push our council members to use it to the most effective degree, the better. If we can hold hearings and open up space for the public to say how they're feeling about a topic and then push that voice towards the state and the federal government, we are doing our jobs. And so make sure you're asking your city council member what resolutions they are sponsoring. Make sure you ask your city council member what they can do with that power of passing resolutions and recommending resolutions and adopting resolutions, and keep asking questions. As always, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful week.